Guess what, everyone? This is Chris Kendall from therawadvantage.com. I'm here at the Best of Raw Expo having a great time, but I have a super awesome interview for you. I got Dr. Rick Dina. How you doing?
Hey, very good.
Good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Super awesome to see you again. You know, the last time we met was at the Woodstock Fruit Festival 2 years ago, and now here, and I really wanted to get you back then, but we got you here, so I would like to say, you know, Dr. Rick Dina here, if you haven't seen him before or haven't heard a lot about him, he's like a 27-year raw foodist and knows a ton of stuff, valuable information for you. So he has a YouTube channel you can check out right here. And I'd love to see if you could share with my audience, you know, how you got to where you are and where you came from, and just a little bit more about yourself and where they can find you.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do so. First of all, let me say it's an honor to be here with the quadruple award winner here at the Raw Living Expo. You won 4 awards.
Feeling super blessed.
That's
but
pretty good.
Thank you all for all the support. Seriously, hugely appreciated. I was in shock that I won 4 awards, honestly.
Well, it's
awesome.
a good way to be shocked. So,
yeah.
so it's an honor to be in your energy field here and your presence here.
Very mutual.
Thank you very much.
Way too kind.
So as you mentioned, Chris, I've been eating a raw food, predominantly raw, probably 90+% raw, completely plant-based vegan diet since the spring of 1987. So we're quickly coming up on
right around where I started skateboarding.
Yeah. So quickly coming up on 27 years, and in that time, I've figured a lot out for myself. Mm-hmm. But then that wasn't enough. You know, I wanted to learn more, so I went to chiropractic school.
Yeah.
I came out of school and spent 4 years at a water fasting clinic, where in those 4 years I saw 600 to 800 people go through water fasting.
Wow, that's
and
awesome.
all of those people, in order to water fast, had blood chemistry.
Yeah.
And I got to see all that.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people were already vegans, a lot of people ate conventionally.
Yeah.
I started to see the differences, and then I saw what happened as they went through the fasting process.
Yeah.
And then since that time, my wife and I teach a series of classes called the Science of Raw Food Nutrition.
Great.
So we've done a lot of research and a lot of stuff, and we lecture to people regularly and teach those classes. So anyway, putting all that together, that's one of the reasons why I offer lab work consulting for people, because I can analyze their lab work and help them figure out what's going on and if there needs to be any fine tuning done or
just super important, right? Because you can be on this diet for a long time, and I know myself. I was like, I'm a raw vegan. I'm invincible. Like, I don't need to brush my teeth. I don't need to do this. I don't like supplements. Never in my life is the devil, you know. But that's not really the reality, right? We're still human beings.
Not always. We're still human beings. And the thing is, when you start eating better and eating a raw food diet, oh my God, you feel so much better. You feel invincible.
Exactly.
Figure a truck had hit you and you're in your car, now you'll just float out of the way, you know.
I thought that way a lot.
Well, it's good to feel.
But then sometimes you can not get enough sleep, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I actually need sleep. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, I need to pay attention to this, or I need to pay attention to that.
Absolutely. So reality sets in, and we still have to, sleep enough, exercise, develop good relationships. You know, all those other things are extremely important in addition to diet.
Mm-hmm. So, what are some of your early influences? Like, who were some people that you either read through or met that were like, wow, that's like huge impacts for you?
So back when I was in late high school and early college, I was doing a lot of conventional things, partying it up, eating conventionally, and I was getting kind of chubby, and wasn't feeling so good. And so that made me motivated to want to find out some more things. So I started by reading some sports nutrition books and just did some things like up my intake of complex carbohydrates, cut back on fat. So I take the skin off my chicken, brown rice instead of white rice, skim milk instead of whole milk, more whole grain cereals in the morning. And just by doing that, I really started to feel better. Got some exercise too and some sun, and it made me got me motivated to keep learning more. So from there, I read some books by Dr. John McDougall, probably a lot of you have heard about. And he's kind of the 80-10-10 starch-centered diet. It's a huge foundation for the raw 80-10-10 diet. So Dr. John McDougall, let's see, who else? Well, shortly thereafter, I read the book Fit for Life.
Huge
got me interested. Too. Awesome. Great stuff. Got me interested in the whole raw food lifestyle and natural hygiene. From there, I started going to some of the natural hygiene regional and annual conferences. Met people like Dr. Joel Furman, Dr. Alan Goldhammer,
giants in the nutrition industry,
a bunch of others. And then just the more I learned and the more I started doing, it made more sense. I started feeling better. I got into fasting, and I had terrible allergies as a kid. The majority of that resolved. I was living in my college dorm, my junior year in college, and I fasted on water for 14 days.
Dang.
Everyone's like, dude, knocking on my door, like, I heard you're on a hunger strike. And I'm like, what's going on? You and Gandhi.
What are you trying to get?
Yeah. So I'm like, no, I'm just trying to be healthy, Like, oh, yeah, whatever floats your boat, man. See you later. They thought I was a lunatic. But, I mean, I wasn't suffering from my allergies anymore. I felt so good. It was just incredible. So I just wanted to keep learning more. So I went to chiropractic school, learned all the basic sciences. And I had a much different perspective on those things than a lot of the other students did, because they meant something to me. Like in histology class, I learned about this thing called the basement membrane that Gabriel Cousens and Victoria Skolvinskis had talked about, and if that thing's permeable, oxygen and nutrients can get in there. And I remember being in this class, the big histology slide is up there, and the basement membrane's there. It's called the basal lamina. And I was like, oh, the basement membrane, that rocks! And everything else is like, dude, just memorize it for the test, and who cares? So it was really fun learning all the basic sciences, already having a raw food background.
That's awesome. That's a unique learning curve, which is great.
It was able to really put things together instead of just memorizing stuff for the test. And the people at the study groups, early in school, I got together with some study groups, and they're just like, memorize it for the test. And I'm thinking, well, here's why this happens, and maybe that's why fiber is so important, and whole foods are better. And they're just like, oh, dude, that's not on the test. Just don't worry. So then I started studying by myself. But anyway, then I got out of school, and I went to do an internship in water fasting. Came out here to California and ended up staying there for 4 years at True North Health Center.
Oh, cool.
And in that 4 years, I was involved in the supervision of about 600 to 800 water fasts.
Wow.
And it was pretty cool. And in order for people to fast safely, they've got to have lab work done before they start fasting. And that's used as a baseline for subsequent checks during the fast to make sure the liver and kidney, everything's doing everything right. And a lot of those people were totally conventional eaters. And a lot of those people were also already on a veggie, vegan, some even a raw type of path, and they wanted to come fit to fast just to get extra healthy. So in seeing all this lab work on all these people and knowing what they ate, knowing what their history was, it started to become pretty obvious that the reference ranges for the average person weren't always the reference ranges for vegans and raw foodists. So I started to really make some distinctions and see some differences.
So that could be a big place where people getting lab work would run into trouble because they get their lab work done from a regular PD or whatever, and they might be really concerned, whereas they just don't have that knowledge. So is there anything that you would say would be really beneficial for people getting lab work done to make sure they want to make sure that their values are read correctly?
Yeah, well, lab work is an incredibly valuable tool, but as we were discussing before, it's only as valuable as the knowledge, education, and experience of the person, usually a doctor or clinician, who's interpreting that lab work for you. So even though the raw food movement is growing by leaps and bounds, and events like this are great, and the Woodstock Fruit Festival is awesome.
Go to Woodstock.
Yeah, definitely go. When we all go home, we know when we fly out of the nest and all go back home, it's not like everyone we know is a raw food vegan.
We're still the weirdos.
We're still the weirdos, but that's good.
It's good.
Like being weird. We got some other weird people to hang out with, so it's all good.
Exactly.
So in any case, if you're eating a raw food vegan diet, some of your biochemistry is going to be different than when you're eating hot dogs and French fries and potato chips. Some of that is reflected in your lab work. So you might have your conventional doctor read your lab work, but you're the only raw food vegan they've seen all year, and some of your values might not fit the normal conventional values that the reference ranges are based upon, and they might be concerned. And if you are familiar with the raw food vegan population and have seen lots of lab work from them, like I've had the unique opportunity to work with people like that over the years, I might not be concerned.
Yeah.
I might say, that's normal for people who eat your way, and sometimes it's extra good.
Yeah.
And there's other times, though, when people figure, they take what I'm saying a little too far. They say, well, none of those reference ranges matter for me because they're based on toxic, sick people who eat hamburgers, hot dogs, and potato chips and French fries. So therefore, lab work, I'm not even going to bother looking, or if it says something's off, I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah.
Well, now the thing is, our physiology does change to some degree depending on what we eat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're still all human beings, and certain parameters still need to be in certain ranges.
Yeah.
So people can sometimes have a problem staring them in the face, but they won't do anything about it because they figure those ranges don't matter for them.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is unfortunate because something can be addressed, and it's not.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're all in good health, especially the best health we possibly can be, representing a healthy lifestyle through raw foods. So
exactly, and that's why most of us are doing this. And there's other reasons: spiritual, planetary, animal rights. But let's be as vibrantly healthy as we can while we're at it.
Makes it as attractive as it possibly can be, right? Being
it's just
active and healthy and vibrant and peaceful, all those things, right?
It's like an exponential win.
Yeah, for
all
sure,
around.
for sure. So you do blood work analysis. That
yes.
you if someone has their own blood work already and they want a second opinion or more information on it from a more rounded perspective, they can send it to you.
Absolutely.
Or you can send them request forms and stuff like that. Even if you want to pinpoint, you do a consult with them and find out more about what you feel would be best to be observed for them?
So yes, I do both of those things. So a lot of people, if their local doctor, local health plan covers some lab work and they got a basic checkup, they can forward me the lab work. We got on the phone or on Skype, and we're looking at the same thing, and we go through it line by line. I explain what's going on. I tell them if it's working or not, what's good, what could use improvement. And with other people, if they haven't had lab work done recently, if they're in the United States, I can send them a form for a local lab that I have an account with. For example, Quest Diagnostics, there's 3,000 of them across the US.
Oh, cool.
So no matter where you are, there's
Just
one near you.
Yeah.
Right, so I send them the form, they go in, and then when I get the results, I forward the results to the person who got their blood drawn, and we go over it that way. And sometimes they can even work with people in different countries. There are certain labs where there are take-home lab kits where you can, for example, pinprick your finger and put some drops of blood on a card and then send it into the lab.
That's awesome.
And
you don't have to actually go get needles and go through the hassle of
right, you do it yourself. And basically those kits come with prepaid postage for within the United States.
Okay.
But if someone's elsewhere, they can send it to me and then I'll forward it up. So
where are you based out of?
Northern California, Santa Rosa, California.
Okay.
But basically I have an electronic internet practice. Deal with the phone and with Skype.
Okay.
And the lab stuff is handy because, again, in the United States, I can order lab work for anybody.
Anywhere.
And in most other countries in the world, like you're from Canada, is that correct?
Yep.
You can go to a doctor and everyone's on the government healthcare plan.
So lucky.
And sometimes it'll be interesting. I'll have a consult with someone in another country and they'll want to get this, that, or the other thing tested. And sometimes it's interesting. I'll have to tell them what to tell their doctor so their doctor will agree to get this tested. Because I know, the way they think, and I've been trained the same way. And so I'm like, okay, tell them this, that, and the other thing, and you want to get this tested, and they'll say it's a good idea. Whereas if you didn't frame it that way, they might not want to test it.
Yeah.
So no matter what the case is, usually we'll talk before the test, unless you already have some you'd like me to analyze. Then they'll get tested, and then we'll go over everything and see where people are. Perfect. And if everything's working great, it's working great, and that's good to know. Yep. And if there's anything to address, people would oftentimes, especially people who are into this kind of lifestyle, would rather have a raw, vegan-friendly clinician help fine-tune them rather than going to their medical doctor who's going to tell them that they better start eating meat because this is off and they're going to be deficient and blah, blah, blah. So I'm the much friendlier version of getting people as healthy as possible.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen some people get information from their doctor and they feel great, and then all of a sudden their doctor says, oh, well, this is bad, and they just go off kilter and trust outside of body sources, don't even really look to themselves.
Isn't that tragic to see? And we have students tell us all the time, I was feeling so good, I was eating raw, but my doctor said I wasn't getting enough protein or was concerned about omega-3s or I was going to become anemic.
Yeah.
And those are all important things that need to be addressed.
Omega-3s.
But, important stuff. But it's, the doctors aren't very well educated about nutrition. And they don't see many raw food vegans because there aren't that many of us there. So... Yeah, and then they're off track, and they're like, on the one hand, I felt better this way, but on the other hand, my doctor is smart and knows this stuff, and I saw my lab work, and he or she said they were concerned. So it can be challenging, and it's tough. It's tough for me to see that.
Oh, for sure.
Like, wow, people got some maybe not the best information, and that's what threw them off track.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of challenges out there with raw food. Getting enough calories, how much fat should I eat, how much fruit should I eat?
Yeah.
God, what about thyroid function and B12 and omega-3s and iron and all that stuff? And then there's junk food out there, and it's tempting, and so there's all these challenges. But then, and that's a whole set of things, but then that whole other set, when everything's working great and somebody talks them out of what they were doing because they don't have the same, the appropriate education, that hurts.
I totally feel that. That's because it is so crazy, because it's like, it's so outside of themselves, right? It's just not coming back into their natural intuition and trust. I guess it does come from just maybe a slight lack of confidence of what they're doing and in themselves, possibly, or something, but that is a huge shame to see. I agree.
Yeah.
Would you recommend blood tests, yearly, or what's your recommendation on that?
Typically, an annual blood test is a good idea to check some basic things. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll do a pretty thorough blood test initially, and then maybe the next year. You don't necessarily need to check everything every year. If something's a little bit off, I might want to follow up a year later, sometimes 3 months later if it's more important. Other times it's like, look, this, that, and the other thing all looked good, you're eating similarly, these other things are getting better, maybe we can check some of those things in another 5 years.
Yeah.
So I guess it just depends on the situation and what's going on with the person. And some people just say, hey, I just want to do the basics and make sure I'm okay. And other people read some things on the internet. They come to a lecture. They're all excited. I want to test this, that, and the other thing. And hey, I have some extra discretionary income to do it. And, so whatever the case may be, I always try to tailor it to the individual.
Perfect.
Yeah, so when people come, number one, I say, look, here's, let's get a history. What are you interested in? What are your concerns? And then I tell people what the costs of the tests are. And then they can weigh what I'm saying with the financial part of it, and then we make a good decision together about what to get tested.
Cool. So where can everyone find you then?
You can go to our website at rawfoodeducation.com.
Yeah.
And then that has information about our consulting, about our Science of Raw Food Nutrition series of classes, where we've got a whole 100-hour curriculum that we teach in Northern California 4 times per year.
Yeah.
We teach our level 1 Science of Raw Food Nutrition class roughly once a month in Northern California, and that class is also available online now.
Cool.
People have access for 6 months, and they can just watch all the segments as many times as they want and get it down, and so that's pretty cool. And then I've got a few videos up on a YouTube channel. Nothing like yours. My wife recently started one, Dr. Dina. She has 2 or 3 videos.
Awesome.
Got to start somewhere.
So do you both have YouTube channels?
We both do.
Okay.
Karen just started hers.
All right. So here's Karen's. Okay. Here's yours.
Okay. Cool. So check them both out.
Yeah.
I'll leave everybody with this thought. A study was done in 2008 by Columbia University where they asked people at a raw food vegan institute a bunch of questions, and then they followed them for 12 weeks to see who was sticking with the diet 12 weeks later.
Yeah.
And of the people sticking with the diet, at the questionnaire they filled out at the beginning 12 weeks earlier, they found 3 things that were correlated with if people were sticking with the diet later on.
Yeah.
Number 1 was education.
Yeah.
The more well-educated someone is about their diet, especially a raw food vegan diet, the more likely they are to be keeping it up later. Just like with anything else, you've got to be educated to know what you're doing.
Yep.
And if you take a sensible, logical, sustainable approach, you can keep it up for a long time.
Yep.
If you don't know what you're doing and you're dabbling and you're not eating in a balanced way, in a rational way, you're gonna, fall off the bandwagon and go do something else and then criticize the raw food diet. Didn't work for me. And
Seen that.
I mean, there's a whole community now of raw food defectors, I'll call them, that all support each other. And I'm not saying everyone has to be a raw foodist for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But at least if it, at least know what you're doing and give it a fair shot.
Yeah.
And I know you've got a lot of excellent information on your channel.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of great speakers at the Woodstock Fruit Festival.
Sure.
There's been all sorts of great speakers here at the Raw Living Expo. There's tons of books out there. Again, you can check out our Raw Food Education website.
Definitely
So
do.
education was number one.
Yep.
Number two is that the more sick people were to begin with, the more likely they were to be sticking with the program 12 weeks later.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, if you're pizza, beer, cigarettes, if you're feeling great doing that, why give up all the things you like?
Yeah.
But if you've got some debilitating condition like rheumatoid arthritis, and it's hard to shake people's hands and you can't even open a letter and you got big knobs on your knuckles, then pizza and hamburgers compared to how good you feel without that disease, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So that was the third. And the third one, that was second. And the third one was just how much confidence people had in sticking with their own changes. So if you get educated and you take a sensible approach, you listen to people like Chris. How long have you been eating a raw diet for?
It's almost a decade now.
You offer retreats, I know your people know.
Yeah.
And so by listening to people who have been doing this for a long time and gaining from their experience, you can absolutely do this. It's totally doable, and we're all here to guide people and kind of help them get the benefits that we've been getting and enjoying for all this time.
More straightforward path instead of all that flim-flamming, right?
Yeah, we've made a lot of the
Makes life
mistakes
easier.
ourselves, so you guys don't have to make them.
Yeah.
We can help guide
If you
you
want
right along.
anyway. You can make those if you want,
Yeah, that's true.
It's a little
Well,
easier.
people, it's good for people to figure things out themselves.
It is. It's true.
Yep.
Well, it's been a huge pleasure, Rick, honestly. I definitely appreciate your time, and I really hope you guys check out your website again one more time.
Rawfoodeducation.com.
Yeah, so check that out. Another Raw Advantage interview for you. Thanks again.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome.
Eat some bananas. Don't forget to get your blood tested.
You should check out Chris Kendall's other videos. Also, click below for his free ebooks.
Excited to announce my new iPhone app, free with 101 frickin' awesome recipes, tier retreat treats, food combining charts, shopping carts, and more.